CMTG Munster, your place for Commander games every Monday and Thursday. Goblin approved.
Hey gang, just to let you know, you can now use the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, at flipsidegaming.com and originalmagicart.store. Using the code gets you 10% off orders $10 or more, and you get to help out the channel at the same time.
Also, as of today, December 31st until January 28th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, this means during that time frame, if you place an order for over $10 or more, you'll be given one entry into a giveaway for Ravnica Allegiance Booster Box. It's one entry per person, so good luck and have fun.
I've made it back to New Jersey, and wouldn't you know it, the head cold came with me. In today's game, I'm playing my new Vial Smasher and Tymna deck, keeping 2 plains, a mountain, Read the Bones, Sign in Blood, Mind Stone, and Smoldering Marsh. New to the channel, Jonathan is playing his Talrand deck, keeping 3 islands, Soul Ring, Forbid, Exclude, and Terrain Generator. Alex is playing his Vaevictus deck, keeping Greater Good, 2 forests, 2 swamps, Sidisi Undead Vizier, and Soul Ring. Last but not least, Matt is playing his Daretti deck, keeping a mountain, Reliquary Tower, Faithless Looting, Mox Opal, Expedition Map, Clock of Omens, and Duplicant. I win the die roll, and I start us off. I play a tap Smoldering Marsh, and I pass. Matt plays a mountain, and he casts Faithless Looting. He draws 2, discards 2, and passes. Jonathan plays an island, and he casts a Soul Ring. Alex plays a forest, and casts a Soul Ring as well, getting a high 5 from Jonathan. I play a plains, and I cast Talisman of Indulgence. Matt plays a Reliquary Tower, and casts Mana Crypt. He then pays 1 to cast Mana Vault, and then pays nothing to drop a now active Mox Opal. Matt then lives the dream with a turn 2 Daretti, and he upticks his Walker, discarding 1 and drawing 1. We then see a Mind Stone hit the field, and he sacrifices to draw a card, and passes to Jonathan. Jonathan, in comparison, plays a Terrain Generator as his land for turn, activates it, and puts out another island. He then casts Preordain, scrying 2 and keeping both on top, and drawing 1, then passing. Alex plays a swamp, and casts Strionic Resonator. I play a mountain, and I cast my own Mind Stone. I then cast Read the Bones, scrying 1 to the top and 1 to the bottom, then losing 2 life and drawing 2 cards before passing. Matt rolls for his Crypt Trigger and loses, taking 3. He then loses 1 more from his tap vault, and he upticks Daretti to discard 2 and draw 2. Matt then casts a Soul Ring because who doesn't need a million mana rocks, and he casts a Sculpting Steel and has it come in as a copy of Soul Ring. Matt then casts Clock of Omens, and he passes to Jonathan. Jonathan plays an island, and out comes Talrand. He then casts a Ponder, getting a Drake token from Talrand, and rearranges the top 3 and draws a card. Alex plays an Urborg as his land for turn, and paying 5 casts Sidisi Undead Vizier. He has her exploit herself as she comes in, and he passes to me while tutoring for the card he wants. I play a Plains, and I cast a Chromatic Lantern, then pass my turn. Matt loses 3 to his Crypt again, but responds to his Mana Vault trigger, and he taps his Clock of Omens and his Mana Crypt to untap the vault. He then plays a Forge of Heroes in his main phase as a land for turn, and with all the mana in the world, chooses to flashback a Faithless Looting. Matt then downticks Daretti, swapping his Crypt for Duplicant, and has the Duplicant exile Talrand upon entering. Matt then casts a Goblin Welder, but Jonathan stops it with a foil to get some revenge, and he discards an island and another card to counter it. Jonathan plays an island for his turn, and paying 6, recasts his Talrand. Alex plays a forest, and he casts Defense of the Heart in his main phase, and passes to me. I play a tap Blood Crypt, and I bring up Vial Smasher. I then pass to Matt. Matt draws for his turn, and he upticks Daretti, discarding a Paradox Engine, and draws 1. He then casts a Lodestone Golem, and moving to combat, he hits Jonathan for 2, and passes turn. Jonathan plays a Myriad Landscape, and we then see an Extraplanar Lens hit the field and exiles an island. Jonathan then moves to combat and hits Daretti for 2 with his Drake, and he passes turn. Alex plays a Swamp for his turn and seems to be missing his red mana. He casts a Crucible of Worlds, and he passes to me. I play a tap Mistveil Plains as my land for turn, and I pass to Matt. Matt pays 6 in his main phase to cast a Wormcoil Engine that he drew for turn. He then upticks Daretti, discarding nothing, and he moves to combat. He swings the Golem and the Duplicant at Jonathan, and he passes turn. Jonathan taps an island for 2 blue, and he cracks his Myriad Landscape to go and find 2 more islands. He then casts a Frantic Search, gaining another Drake token, and drawing 2, then discarding 2, before finally untapping 2 lands. We then see a Factor Fiction, gaining him another Drake, and he has Alex make the piles. Jonathan takes the pile of 3, dumping an island and Blue Sun Zenith into his graveyard. He then casts a Cold Steel Heart and names blue as it enters. Moving to combat, Daretti eats 2 again from another Drake, and he passes turn. On Alex's upkeep, he's able to sacrifice his Defense of the Heart to go and find a Sheoldred and a Grave Titan, putting them onto the field. This gives Alex 2 zombie tokens as the Titan drops. We then see a Greater Good come from Alex's hand in his main phase, and with it on the stack, I cast Anguished Unmaking to exile the Sheoldred. I then roll for the Vial Smasher trigger, and Matt takes 4, not 3, because of the tax his creatures put on my spell. Sheoldred is then exiled. Alex passes turn, and at the end of turn, I crack my Mind Stone to draw a card. For my turn, I play Command Tower as my land for turn, and have to pay 3 to cast Sign in Blood, targeting myself. Vial Smasher deals 3 to Jonathan this time. I then lose 2 life and draw 2 cards. I then count up the creatures on the board and would have much preferred this to be my first spell, but I pay 1 to cast a Blasphemous Act to try and wipe away the board. Alex sacrifices his Grave Titan to Greater Good, drawing 6 and discarding 3. The board wipe then resolves, and Matt gets 2 Worm tokens, one with Lifelink and one with Death Touch. With Alex done discarding, I then pass to Matt. Matt upticks Daretti, discarding the card he drew and drawing 1. He then casts a Mindslaver, which is just so great for us all. Moving to combat, Alex eats 6 from the worms, and Matt gains 3. In his second main phase, Matt then sacrifices the Mindslaver to take Alex's next turn. Jonathan plays an island for his turn, and Talrand comes out once more. He then casts Treasure Cruise after delving away some cards, and he draws 3 and gains a Drake token. Jonathan then casts Overburden, and we then see a Merchant Scroll hit the stack, so he can go and find a spell. He also gains Drake token, which thanks to the errata on Overburden, doesn't trigger the enchantment's ability, and Jonathan grabs everyone's favorite, Cyclonic Rift. Jonathan then passes to Alex/Matt's turn. Matt has Alex play Windswept Heath as his land for turn, and cracks it to take 1, but fails to find a land. Matt then casts a Pattern of Rebirth onto one of his worms, and he doesn't really have anything else to do with Alex for the turn, so he taps all of Alex's mana, and he passes. At the end of turn, I cast Wretched Confluence, choosing to lose 1 and draw a card 3 times. I play a Swamp for my turn, and I cast Wear and Tear Fused. I blow up the Pattern and the Clock of Omen, and I then cast my own Phyrexian Arena, and I pass turn. Matt draws and upticks Daretti, discarding a card and drawing a card. Moving to combat, he swings a worm each at Alex and I, and then gains 3 life as we each lose 3. Jonathan plays an island for his turn, and he casts Opportunity to draw some cards and gains a Drake. He then swings 2 Drakes at Daretti for 4, and Talrand at Alex for 2 commander damage, passing to Alex. Alex plays a Windswept Heath as his land for turn, and cracks it, taking 1 to go and find a Cinder Glade. He then casts Vaevictus, and we miss the Overburden trigger sadly, and he passes to move to his combat step. At the end of the main phase, Jonathan casts a buyback Capsize to bounce Vaevictus back to Alex's hand. Alex sacrifices his commander to Greater Good, and with that on the stack, I cast Reverberate to copy the Capsize. I have my copy target Jonathan's extraplanar lens, and Alex draws 6 again and discards 3, while Jonathan gains another Drake from the Capsize resolving. Jonathan gains another Drake token from casting Capsize. Alex then casts a Lightning Greaves in his second main phase, and discards down to 7 and passes. At the end of turn, Jonathan realizes that Alex should have bounced a land as well, and Alex returns a basic to his hand. I lose 1 to the arena, and I draw an extra card. I play a Temple of Silence, scrying and bottoming the card on top. I then cast a Cleansing Nova, and I choose to have it destroy all artifacts and enchantments, which Alex and Matt aren't too happy about. It just shows how reliant Matt was this whole time on mana rocks, because he's only left with 3 lands. Yikes. I then cast Tymna, and I pass to Matt. Matt casts a Winter Orb in his main phase, telling us not to freak out. We let it resolve, and Matt plays a Temple of the False God, then downticks Daretti to swap the orb for a Gilded Lotus. With nothing else, he passes to Jonathan. Jonathan recasts his extraplanar lens, exiling another island as it enters. He then cycles a land to draw a card, and moves to combat. He swings 2 Drakes at me, Talrand to finish off Daretti, and a Drake at Alex for 2. With nothing else, he passes to Alex. Alex casts a Sensei's Divining Top, and he then drops a Vizier of the Menagerie. He looks at his top card, and he passes to me. I play a Cave of Koilos as my land for turn, moving to combat. Jonathan decides to cast his Capsize again with buyback to bounce Tymna to my hand. He gets another Drake token, and I then move through my combat step. In my second main phase, I cast Fumigate to wipe the board, and I gain some much needed life. I gain a total of 7 as the spell resolves. I then drop a Weathered Wayfarer and recast Tymna, passing to Matt. Matt plays a Mountain for his turn, and he recasts Daretti. He upticks the Walker, discarding nothing, and he passes. Jonathan plays an Island, and he recasts Talrand. He then casts an Impulse, gaining another Drake, and gets to look at the top 4 cards, and keeps 1. Alex draws for turn, and he moves to activate his top. Jonathan has an answer for this though, and uses Interdict to savagely deny Alex's ability, and any ability from the top for the rest of the turn. Plus, Jonathan gets to make another Drake and draw a card. Alex could pay to activate it again, but he instead decides to cast a Birthing Pod, and he passes. I play Tainted Field as my land for turn, and I move to combat. I swing the Wayfarer at Matt, and Tymna at Alex. I gain 2 life from Tymna connecting, which I then spend to her second ability in my post-combat main phase to draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. I cast Shreds of Sanity, and I return Read the Bones and Wretched Confluence to my hand. I then recast Read the Bones, scrying 2, losing 2, and drawing 2. I then pass to Matt. Matt draws and upticks Daretti to discard a Mirrorworks. He plays a Buried Ruin and cracks it to return Wormcoil Engine to his hand and casts it. Jonathan has a big old nope for it with a Disallow. Responding to the Disallow, I cast Wretched Confluence, this time choosing to give 3 creatures -2/-2 until the end of turn, hitting 2 Drakes and Talrand. The Wormcoil is countered, the creatures die, and Jonathan still gets a 2/2 Drake. Jonathan plays another Island as his land for turn, and he cycles a Lonely Sandbar. He then recasts Talrand again with Mana Despair, and moving to combat, he hits Daretti again for 2 with his Drake. Alex draws, and he casts World Shaper in his main phase. It resolves, and Alex moves to combat, swinging the World Shaper at me because he has Anger in the graveyard and a Mountain on the field. He mills 3 cards, and I take 3 damage. In his second main phase, Alex pays 2 life and 1 mana to sacrifice the Merfolk to his Birthing Pod, and he goes to find a 5-drop. But first, the On Death trigger lets Alex go and bring back all the lands from his graveyard and put them onto the field tapped. Alex then grabs a Gitrog monster, and he passes. I play my own Urborg as my land for turn, and I cast Dark Petition. I've got Spell Mastery active, so I get to tutor for a card and gain 3 floating black mana. I then use the 3 to cast Yawgmoth's Will that I tutored for, and I recast Dark Petition, gaining 3 more black mana and tutor again. I then cast Mana Geyser, gaining 21 red mana. I then cast back Chromatic Lantern, Talisman of Indulgence, the Mind Stone, and taking 1 from tapping my Talisman for black mana, recast Read the Bones, scrying 2, losing 2, and drawing 2. I then cast Faithless Looting, drawing 2 more, and discarding/exiling 2 more. I then sacrifice my Mind Stone to draw a card, and realize I can't do much more with what I have, so I cast Swords to Plowshares on Talrand and move to combat. I swing Tymna at Jonathan and the Wayfarer at Matt. Jonathan uses Pongify to destroy Tymna, and Matt then takes 1, and I pass. Matt draws for a turn, and he upticks Daretti, discarding what he drew, and draws another card. He then passes to Jonathan. Jonathan plays an Island for his turn, and you just can't keep a good Talrand down. He hits me for 2 with his Drake token, and he passes to Alex. Alex sacrifices a land to Gitrog on his upkeep, and draws for doing so. He then draws for turn, and he cracks his Windswept Heath, drawing from the Gitrog monster again, and grabbing a forest. Alex then decides to cast Demon Lord Belzenlock, and reveals a Wood Elves. He puts it to his hand and loses 1 life. Alex then casts it and swings the Gitrog monster at Daretti before searching for his land and passing to me. I draw for turn, and I move to combat, swinging my Monkey token at Jonathan. Jonathan decides to overload Cyclonic Rift, and bounces all of his opponent's non-land permanents back to their owner's hands. This actually works in my favor, as I'm now able to cast Inner Fire in conjunction with Reiterate to make infinite red mana since my hand is so large. I'm then able to use my 2 remaining lands to pay for a large enough Exsanguinate, and I kill the table all at once. Game review time. So, this is probably the first time you've ever seen my Vial Smasher and Tymna deck. I typically don't like Mardu, so I thought it would be an interesting challenge to build a Mardu Spellslinger deck since I wouldn't have blue or green. So far I've enjoyed the deck a lot, but I do find that I get low on life since so much of my card draw relies on me spending life for cards. Matt's Daretti deck was very strong and he had a ton of mana early on, but unfortunately he seemed to just draw into more mana rocks and more lands. I also feel like he kept discarding some of those lands despite the fact that he could have been playing them, and when I blew up all of the artifacts, he was really left stranded. Alex really didn't do very much this game, besides using Defense of the Heart to get Shouldered and Grave Titan, but those were both quickly dealt with. It's hard to say what the right line of play was, but I think with him having anger in the graveyard, I probably would have prioritized getting Vaevictus out over expanding my board state. I think Jonathan's Talrand deck was pretty sweet, and he didn't run a critical mass of counterspells, which I often find is the case with that kind of deck. As the main aggressor of the game, he was forced into a hard position of having to decide between attacking players or attacking planeswalkers. I do think ultimately keeping Daretti off his ultimate was a big deal, but unfortunately it also meant that he was missing out on doing some damage to Matt, myself, and Alex. I think this highlights the dilemma of playing against planeswalkers as commanders, as it forces you to have to decide between committing resources to kill the planeswalker or the player.
Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/MTGMudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/MTGMudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.